Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show with a weird episode for you today. Now, when it comes to leaks lately, we got, well, basically the entire set of Modern Horizons 3 leaked. Not the entire set, but I mean, it was well over half, it seemed like. At least well over half of the mythics and rares. A lot of cards were leaked. That being said, sometimes leaks are legitimate, like basically every single leak from that entire set was legitimate except for, I think, Colossal Eldrazi Maul, but let me know in the comments below if I'm missing something. I can't remember if there's another one that wasn't real, but most of the time, leaks end up being real. This one is really suspect for a couple of reasons, so let's jump into the card. I'm going to talk about the card first. I'll show the leaked image at the end of the episode, and you can decide for yourself as well. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I will say this is not the leaked image to start things off, okay? The leaked image is so blurry that apparently only the sleuths on the internet can read it. I had a hard time reading it myself. Let me know if you see anything different than what shows up on this custom card that I made for it, essentially, with the custom art as well. The discussion point is Yawgmoth is back, question mark? Lord of the Wastes. So, here's the thing. Many players out there were very disappointed that Yawgmoth did not show back up in Modern Horizons 3 because that seems like the perfect spot for Yawgmoth, even though that's, I mean, not even though, but like, it is the, maybe one of the only spots for Yawgmoth because Yawgmoth is supposed to be gone permanently, right? So, you kind of need one of those sets that can traverse time and just, you know, go from here to there to everywhere, again, like a Modern Horizons set. A set that is outside a normal set, outside the storyline, essentially, and just jumps from different story parts. So, Yawgmoth could exist as a card again. Obviously, we have gotten, like, you know, younger Yawgmoth as a card. We've never gotten Yawgmoth God version as a card. So, let's talk about what the card does, if this is legitimate or not. And again, one of the reasons against it might be, well, okay, if it wasn't in Modern Horizons 3, what set is it in moving forward? Some people are saying it could be Duskborn. Like, I highly doubt that, personally. Maybe like a Commander precon of some sort. I don't know how they justify that. We shall see. So there's one reason why this might not be real. Another might just be what this does, okay? It is a 9/9 Phyrexian God with Fear and Death Touch that costs 12 mana in total. 9 Phyrexian Black, Phyrexian Black, Phyrexian Black, so it could be as low as 9 mana in 6 life. Whenever a creature dies, you may put a creature card from your graveyard with lower mana value onto the battlefield under your control, except it's a Phyrexian in addition to other types, and has pay black, black, sacrifice a creature, draw a card. On top of that threshold, as long as there are 7 or more cards in your graveyard, Yawgmoth has Indestructible. So, personally, I like a few things that are going on this card, and I also think some of the things going on this card are a bit ridiculous, so it is kind of suspect on just how powerful this might be. This reminds me of whatever that one Abzan tree is in a way. The last U, whatever, Kolfenor. There you go. We got there because this is creature dying, bringing something else back. That being said, Kolfenor is based off of toughness, and also it's only when your creatures are dying. Still, there's some crazy broken things that you can do with that, and I did a deck tech on that, so check that out. But this one is when any creature dies, not just your own. And that opens up absurd possibilities that, I mean, this is just kind of like, once you get this out, it's going to be really hard to stop, obviously, because you can just kind of chain one thing to another thing to another thing to another thing and just wipe out your opponent's boards while resupplying your entire board, essentially, because you're reanimating creatures for free at a certain point. And on top of that, you have a free sacrifice outlet built in that you can, it's not free, I guess, but it's built in on this card to give to the other creatures that you can sacrifice them by paying black, black to draw a card. And that's pretty good, actually, obviously. And obviously, being able to have this be indestructible makes it very hard to deal with. On top of it being hard to block as well with that Fear. Again, can't be blocked except by, I believe, black and artifact creatures, right? That's Fear. And then Death Touch as well. So, yeah, this is a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, I do think, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like, is this any more push than, say, Nadu from Modern Horizons? No, because Nadu is 3 mana and can be broken so easily so early. Is this just, like, a ridiculous concept? I mean, but, like, the thing is, again, like, is this more powerful than, say, like, original Urza? And I'm not talking about the blinds here. I'm talking about Urza, what is it, Lord High Artificer, whichever one is the one that is mono blue, okay? No, because Urza is lower to the ground again and just gives you absurd amounts of mana. That being said, when you get this out, it's probably game over because you're just going to be doing some absurd things. And there's definitely some loops that you can do with it as well. I mean, if I had to lean one way or the other, it just seems a bit... And again, like, some of the wording seems a little off to me as well, but again, that might just be... It's hard to read, right? It is very blurry, and you'll see the image at the end of the episode, so you can decide for yourself as well. I mean, if I had to guess if this is real or not, I would say no. I mean, maybe I give it a 10% chance, because I have been wrong in the past before when it's like, oh, that image looks pretty grainy, that image looks terrible, this looks off on that image, that looks off on the image, and then ends up being real later. Kind of like many players out there with, Ulabog with the last set, were like, that can't be real. There's no way they'd make something that's like Annihilator X with the counters and whatever, and it looks kind of like it was, you know, baked in a microwave and then also put in the deep fryer for a couple of minutes, and then it ended up being real. This, it's still an interesting thought process just to think like, okay, I don't think this is real. Again, I'll give it a 10% shot. It does seem like an interesting concept, though, and it's interesting to think about if Yawgmoth was to come back as a card. I'm talking about God Yawgmoth, not like, you know, human Yawgmoth that sacrifices creatures and proliferates that we already have, right? What would it do? Because the power level on that would be absurd. Just absurd. So, I mean, this is a crazy power level, obviously. It's hard to deal with. Again, Indestructible is not too hard to get. I love Threshold that they would bring that back, because Threshold was one of the mechanics that I started playing with way back in, was it Onslaught or Odyssey? I think it was Odyssey. Regardless, started playing with that a long time ago. That's really cool. And, of course, there is a way around that. Like, an opponent could, like, Bazooka Bog you, and then all of a sudden it's not indestructible anymore, okay? That being said, it's a huge threat, and, of course, it can definitely do some chainy loops and some crazy things. By creatures dying, you can get other creatures back, which maybe make other creatures die, and then you keep going and going and going. So, it's a very cool concept for a card. We shall see if this ends up being real. And again, if it is real, what in the world set is this in? Or what product is this in? Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on that. Like, if assuming it's real, what set or product could this potentially fit in? And I would assume it'd be within this year. So let's just stay with that, okay? What would happen? What would make this real? Again, the chance for Yawgmoth was Modern Horizons 3. And I think the number crunchers pretty early figured out that, unfortunately, God Yawgmoth was probably not showing up. Regardless, let's jump into, just in case this one is real. And again, I urge you, do not purchase anything for this commander. I mean, with the other ones in the past, it's like, yeah, this seems like it's a legitimate one. And, you know, I'm leaning 99.9% sure that, you know, this is an actual card in the leak. So, sure, if you want to ask your playgroup first, I still always say ask your playgroup first. Because if it ends up not being real, you don't want to be like, oh, darn, well, I just wasted all that money on this deck that I can't play. Ask your playgroup first if they're okay with you playing around this commander. They might be. They might be like, yeah, that's a cool concept. Sure, like, play it. Why not? Proxy it, and then if it ends up not being real, if your playgroup's okay with it, keep playing with it. Great. But yes, if not, sure, bookmark the link in the description below for all the cards I'm going to talk about on this episode, and save it until Yawgmoth becomes real. And then you're going to be like, I told you it's real. I told you it's real. I'm getting those cards right now. Yeah. Regardless, it is an interesting thought experiment as to what Yawgmoth would do. I mean, I think it would be somewhat, I mean, not somewhat similar to this. I do like the whole bringing creatures back. I don't think it would just be like whenever any creature dies, you bring anything else back. I don't think it would be that way, but I could be wrong. Maybe this is an actual real card, and I'm going to eat my words. You decide for yourself. Again, in the episode, I'll show the actual image. I'm going to warn you, it's quite blurry. But yeah, let's jump into the budget buys and the pricier picks. Okay, here's the thing. Starting off with the budget buys, again, cards that are within my budget, less than $1. There are some disgusting chains that you can do with this commander. If this ends up being real, you're gonna want a lot of creatures that are like, hey, I entered the battlefield and I took something out, or more than one thing out, like Ravenous Chupacabra, a 2/2 beast that costs 4 mana, enters the battlefield, destroy target creature and opponent controls. Yeah, I mean, this is already just really good, because you just have this enter the battlefield, it takes out an opponent's creature, and then guess what? You get to reanimate one of your own creatures again. Or if this is in your graveyard and one of your opponent's creatures or one of your creatures gets taken out that costs 5 or more, you bring this back, you take out something else, you bring something else back out of your graveyard. Yeah, I mean, that costs 1 less, but still, we'll get to plenty of examples of ones that cost less that can do a lot of work for you. Shriekmaw, yet another one. This one's at 5 mana. So again, the higher mana value of things, the better and worse. It's better because, like, if they die themselves, you get something back that is bigger. It's worse than that you need something pretty big to get it back into play. A 3/2 elemental with fear that says enters the battlefield to destroy a target non-artifact, non-black creature, and you can evoke it. So this one, just for 2 mana, you can have come into play, take something out, and then it takes itself out. So you basically get 2 things back out of your graveyard, which is quite nice. Overseer of the Dam, when you're taking out all these things, you also get benefits too. 5/5 flyer ETB, destroy target creature. Whenever a non-token creature opponent controls dies, create a tap 2/2 black zombie creature token. So not only are you bringing creatures back, but you are also making an army. I will say, of course, like, one direction you can go with this commander is like, yeah, drain your opponents out with like Blood Artist, Silverport Cutthroat kind of things as well. So yeah, going wide with this kind of a thing can really help you out. Next up, a Cursed Marauder, a brand new card that I can see being incredibly popular. Yeah, this thing is quite good. A 2/1 Zombie Warrior for 2 mana in black. Enters the battlefield. Each player sacrifices a non-token creature. This includes yourself? Yes, but I mean, you're going to sacrifice the Cursed Marauder. Great. But also your opponents are sacrificing 3 creatures that are non-token, which means that you're going to have some mana value to choose from. To be like, oh yeah, cool. All right, they sacrificed a 3, a 4, a 5, whatever it is. All right, I get those things back out of my graveyard, or, -1 on each of those, just for a 2 mana creature. So again, kind of having like pod chain mentality with this kind of a commander can be huge, because you can go from, again, out of your graveyard, just go, oh, okay, yeah, cool. You have, you have some things going on over there, all right? You got some creatures getting taken out. Well, okay, from, your 4-mana creature getting taken out, I'm going to get my Plaguecrafter in play, which makes everyone sacrifice a creature or planeswalker enters the battlefield. Each player who can't discards a card. Cool. You sacrifice some creatures, great. And then I sacrifice my Plaguecrafter, which is going to go down to my Cursed Marauder, which makes even more sacrifice, which you can see, like, literally you just need to get your commander in play and force one, like, Edict type effect. And you're going to, like, chain your way into taking out all of your opponent's creatures and reanimating so many of yours, which you might lose to because their own, sacrifice abilities, but still, it's fine. You also can utilize things like Phyrexian Delver. 3/2 Phyrexian Zombie for 5 mana. Enters the battlefield, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life, equal that card's mana value. This is one of those ways that you can kind of, like, go back up the chain. You would need some life gain synergies, but there's plenty of those that you can utilize in mono black. Again, like I talked about, like Zulport Cutthroat, those kind of things. Blood Artist when creatures die. There's also other ways to gain life when creatures are dying too, or coming into play. Mostly dying in black. Regardless, going from, again, this to, like, let's say, like, a 9-mana creature. Then you can go down to an 8, then a 7, then a 6, then back to this, then back to the 9. You can keep chaining that over and over and over again. Well, also, I mean, I guess when this dies too, going down to a 4. You can keep chaining that over and over again, and there's definitely some combinations that you could win with that. Obviously, through, like, a sacrifice outlet that gives you value, a sacrifice outlet that might drain an opponent, or, of course, just, yeah, those Zulport Cutthroat type effects that punish your opponents when creatures are dying. Puppeteer's Click, another thing you could do is reanimate your opponent's creatures as well. A 3/2 Flying Fairy Wizard for 5 mana. Enters the battlefield, put target creature card from the opponent's graveyard on the battlefield under your control, gains haste. Beginning of your next end step, exile it, and it's got persist. With this, you would want sacrifice outlets built in the deck, which you probably already do want sacrifice outlets built in the deck. Most likely free ones. We'll get to one here in a little bit. Not too long at all, actually. And with this, being able to say, oh, instead of that creature that I stole getting exiled, I'm going to sacrifice it so that I get my commander's trigger, and then I get something else back from my own graveyard. I can sacrifice this, it persists, comes back. You can do a lot of spicy things with these reanimation-style creatures, and again, some broken things too. Viserys here, a 1/1 Vampire Wizard for 1 mana, sacrifice a creature, scry 1. The power of a free sacrifice outlet is massive in Commander with certain types of strategies, including this one. Being able to just freely get rid of one of your own creatures to go to a creature that costs 1 mana value less, reanimated from your graveyard, then do it again, and again, and again, is crazy. So yes, even though your commander does give you that kind of built-in sacrifice on creatures by having you pay black to sacrifice them, draw a card, which is very nice. Again, very, very nice. It's still probably more impactful once you really get things going to have those free sacrifice outlets so you're not dependent on spending mana to sacrifice creatures when you need to. So yeah, this can be absolutely amazing. Perpetual Timepiece. Essentially, any kinds of ways to, like, mill yourself repeatedly or, like, mass mill like Keening Stone can be amazing with this commander because, well, the more things in your graveyard, obviously you can hit that threshold, protect your commander. It's going to take no time at all. I should say what this does. Cost 2, tap, mill 2 cards. So getting up to that 7 will take no time at all. Make your commander destructible, hard to deal with. But then also fill your graveyard with more and more creatures, more and more options for you to reanimate. You also can take your opponents out with something like Sir Conrad the Grim. So we talked about how, well, Zulport Cutthroat and those kind of things can be great. This one can as well. Whenever the creature dies or a creature card is put in a graveyard from anywhere on the battlefield or a creature card leaves the graveyard, 1 damage each opponent. So this one hurts your opponents whenever creatures are going here, there, or anywhere, which is amazing for a commander that, again, says, you know what? Let's get creatures out of graveyards whenever creatures die. So this can punish your opponents a lot. You also, if you really want to, can pay 1 of black and each player mills a card, which could come in really handy by giving you more options of creatures out of your graveyard. And of course, like, let's say an opponent's like, finally, they don't have Threshold, I shall destroy Yawgmoth. And you're like, we all mill a card. Back to 7. No! So that's an option too. Skyclave Relic, I just want to mention that, of course, this commander has an absurdly high mana value. And of course, if you are wanting to utilize the sacrifice for the black to draw cards with your creatures, it is important to be able to mana fix. So like Skyclave Relic can be a great one. Kicker for 3, indestructible, enters the battlefield. If it was kicked, you get 2 tap tokens or copies of it. Tap for 1 mana of any color. Being able to tap for black mana can be massive for this commander. So yes, you want to ramp a ton. You want to ramp quickly. You could even get your commander out without paying any black mana at all. Again, it costs 9 generic and 3 Phyrexian black. So it can be 9 generic and then also 6 life. But if you do want to be considering, the fact that you actually need black mana to sacrifice your creatures, which you'll have plenty of it, but still, if you want to be able to freely sacrifice a lot of creatures, this can be huge to focus on ramping, but specifically ramping that gives you access to black mana. Finally, I just want to mention this because it's funny, at least in my opinion, Hedron Matrix. Equipment for 4, that costs 4 to equip creatures +X for its converted mana cost. This turns your commander into a one-shot KO because your commander has 12 converted mana cost. Your commander will get +12/+12. It's at 9 already, so it's 21 total power, of course, meaning its commander damage will be 21. So yeah, there's certain opponents that won't be able to block it anyways because they don't have an artifact creature or a black creature as well. Get through on them, take them out in one shot. Obviously, there's plenty of other ways, like I already mentioned, to take your opponents out, like wiping out their armies in no time, chaining through your creatures in your graveyard, getting certain things out, getting combos out potentially, or just draining your opponents with like Zulport Cutthroat or like hurting them with like Sir Conrad. So lots of options here. Next up, let's talk about pricier picks. Another card from my childhood to bring up. This one's from, I believe, Judgment. Sorcery for 7 mana Morality Shift. I love this card. Wizards reprint it. Exchange your graveyard in your library, then shelve your library. This is hilarious with a commander like this, because you're like, I really would like my graveyard to be full. Not just for my commander having Threshold, which it definitely would, but also to be like, hey, yeah, I get access to basically all my creatures. Whenever any creature dies anywhere, I get whatever I want that's slightly smaller back out of my graveyard. You could definitely churn through opponents with something like this. Just speaking of churning through things, though, Attrition. Enchant for 3 mana. Pay a single black mana, sacrifice creature, store target non-black creature. This is absurd with this commander. This is just, hey, sacrifice a creature, destroy a creature. Again, non-black, sure, but you're going to have options out there. And then get 2 things back out of your graveyard. That costs less than each of those creatures that just died. And then do it again. And then do it again. And then do it again. This is gross, disgusting, and amazing for you, Mikaeus the Unhallowed. Speaking of gross, disgusting, and amazing, that art. A 5/5 zombie cleric for 6 mana. Intimidate whenever a human deals damage to you, destroy it. Most importantly, though, other non-human creatures you control get +1 and have Undying. So being able to, well, again, sacrifice your creatures and then have them come right back means that you can sacrifice them again, and then you're getting 2 things back out instead of just 1. I mean, not just 1, but you're getting 2 reanimations for the price of 1 creature, essentially. Again, this can work incredibly well once you've got those free sacrifice outlets ready to go. Obviously, this only applies to non-human creatures, but there's plenty of great ones to consider with that. It also protects your commander in a way, too, because your commander is most definitely not human anymore. It's a Phyrexian god. Next up, Shieldred. Speaking of Phyrexians, 4/5 Menace enters the battlefield. Each opponent sacrifice a non-token creature or planeswalker. Yeah, that's already just kind of like Plague Crafter levels of things, essentially. I guess it's more like Curse Marauder, but again, it's just your opponents, not you. So getting 3 things back out of your graveyard is quite nice. On top of that, though, by paying 5 mana, essentially, you flip it over. Activate offend opponent has 8 or more cards in their graveyard. I mean, if you're wiping out things here and there and everywhere, you're probably going to get there. So there you go. Flips over, and then you got the back Shieldred. The big thing is, well, first up, you can destroy 1 target creature, planeswalker for each opponent. So again, you can like reanimate 3 more things, make opponents discard cards and mill cards, and then also reanimate all creatures. Rise the Dark Realms, basically. And then this flips back over to make your opponent sacrifice more things. So, yeah, there's plenty of ways for you to win, including Rise of the Dark Realm, Shieldred, essentially. Moving on, other Shieldred, of course, can be absolutely amazing with this commander as well. Hey, at the beginning of your upkeep, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. At the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, the player sacrifices a creature. Yeah, even more reanimation for you, on top of all that you already have. And then, of course, forcing opponents to each sacrifice a creature on their upkeep. That is massive. That is huge because it's basically you also get to reanimate creatures on your opponent's upkeeps too. So that is quite gross, quite amazing. Speaking of that, It That Betrays, sure. This Turgid as well could be considered. Whenever opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent, put that card on the battlefield under your control. Annihilator 2 as well. Yeah, go for it. Just, I mean, take all your opponent's things. You're forcing them to sacrifice things anyways. You're reanimating things. You might as well just steal their things as well. Then you, sacrifice those, bring back other things, get those things back. There are some disgusting things that you can do. Again, there's pretty crazy loops that you can do, I am sure, with a commander like this. Finally, Stinging Study. Instant for 5 mana. This card's $6. Sheesh. You may draw, not you may. You draw X cards and lose X life or X the mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield in the command zone. Again, keep in mind, your commander has an absurd converted mana cost at 12. That's incredibly high. That's like Eldrazi numbers, essentially. Though you don't have to pay Eldrazi prices because you can pay just like 12. Or, I mean, 9. But I guess there's certain, like, the Emrakul's, or one of the Emrakul's, like, has a cost reduction. So there you go. Regardless, paying 5 mana to draw 12 cards, sure, that's worth the 12 life at instant speed. My goodness, draw a new hand and then some. So yeah, there's a reason why this is decently expensive, and it takes advantage of a commander that has an absurdly high mana value like this one. 1 life for 1 card is going to be well worth it. So like Hedron Matrix, think of cards that actually take advantage of your commander's high converted mana cost. But now this episode is coming to a close. Let me know what your thoughts are on this in the comments below. Do you think this is legitimate? Even if you haven't seen, if you haven't like scrolled forward and seen like the actual image of the card, which again, I will warn you, is quite blurry, is quite hard to read. But again, these sleuths on the internet apparently have figured out that this is basically what it is. So let me know in the comments below. Not seeing the image right now, based on what this commander potentially does, and the fact that it, again, is Yawgmoth that is not in Modern Horizons and would have to fit in a set most likely within the rest of this year, which, what set would that be? Let me know if you think that I'm not trying to bias your answers, but I guess I am. My apologies. Do you think this is legitimate? I guess is the first question I'm asking you for all the reasons I've stated. Let me know what your thoughts are on this, and also make sure you look at the image, and also let me know if you think that looks legitimate as well. Again, I give it like a 10% chance. It would... If I hadn't been, I've been wrong in the past again. I have been wrong in the past, been like, that can't be real. That's not real. And then I like didn't talk about it. And people were like, why didn't you talk about that one? I'm like, because I didn't think it was real because it's ridiculous. But again, when it comes to like power levels and stuff like that, Wizards is getting crazy lately. Over the past like 3 or 4 years, it just really has ramped up. So anything is possible, I guess. So yeah, let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on this one. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.